We are in for a different show today. My guest is an Ayurvedic master. That's what I'm going to call her. Dr. Shivani Gupta actually has a master in Ayurvedic science, but also, listen to this, a PhD in turmeric. One plant, one PhD in one plant. That blew my mind. You're going to love our conversation today. We talked about the similarities of Ayurvedic medicine versus Chinese medicine. We talked about the five element versus the element that Ayurveda looks at, the doshas, which are kind of like the personality and body type. We talked about chi, which is prana. We talked about turmeric and its amazing benefits. I mean, this conversation, we had so much fun. I have never met Dr. Shivani. And if you haven't met her yet, you are going to fall in love because, wow, are you ready? Let's go. Welcome to the AcuPro Show, Dr. Shivani Gupta. I'm so glad you're here. I have a million questions for you. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
First of all, you're in Florida. I'm in Canada, so I envy you because it's probably much warmer where you are than I am because you're in Fort Lauderdale, right? How long have you been practicing Ayurvedic medicine or Ayurveda or been part of the Ayurveda world? And how did you get into it?
I grew up in Houston, Texas. I'm really a Texan by birth to an Indian immigrant family. And when my parents moved here from India, they had nothing and they lived this American dream, building a really successful life. But in the process, I ate a lot of processed food, a lot of fast food, just like any kid growing up during that time. And anytime I was sick, we'd go to the pediatrician, and to fix me, they would just give me an antibiotic. And so that happened for many years. And fast forward, when I was younger, we also started going to India every year. And we'd go see my grandparents and my cousins and immerse into my home culture of India, my original culture. And I would get really sick in India every time, and they'd give me even stronger antibiotics. So fast forward into high school, by then I had probably taken antibiotics 50 times. I was getting chronic colds every month, and they just upped the strength of what they were giving me. So I was taking Augmentin all the time, going to India, getting sick. No one really understood, hey, maybe this is a pattern that we should interrupt for this child. But I was just the weak one, the sick one. And I always thought, oh, I just have low energy. I have low immunity. I'm just different than anyone in my family. I will have to just manage this going forward. Finally, in college, I was so sick. They thought they'd have to hospitalize me. I couldn't function. And I went to this doctor, Dr. Gupta, and he wrote out a prescription for about 13 medications. And I looked at the list, and something inside of me just screamed, no, we're not doing this anymore. And I looked at him and I said, look, that first medicine, what is that? He said, oh, it's an antibiotic. I said, why don't you drop it down a couple of notches? Why don't we not explode my gut? And I was like, what are the other 12? He said, oh, those are just for your symptoms. I was like, okay, look, let's start over. You drop that down, you give me a probiotic, and we're not taking anything with side effects. And that was when I looked at my parents and I said, you know what? We're in the land of yoga and Ayurveda. Maybe they have something for me because this is not working anymore. And we went on this quest and we went on this journey and we went to North, South, East, and West India, went to Kerala, studied Ayurveda at the guru's feet, went to the Ayurvedic detox centers and healed my gut, healed my body. I learned about Ayurvedic medicine. And I was like, wait a minute, this system exists and none of us know about it in the United States. The best we've done is Deepak Chopra wrote some phenomenal books and some portion of the population read them. That's it. I was like, there's a entire world that needs to hear this message. And that set me on my path with Ayurveda. I studied it casually for many years, taking many courses, doing books. I was lucky enough to study it in India many times. And then I realized I need to formalize my education because my plan is to write books to impact the world. So I ended up embarking on my master's degree in Ayurvedic sciences. And in herbology class, I fell so deeply in love with the spices. And I thought, wow, if our spices can do all that, that's a easy tool to give people for their health. And so I did my whole PhD dissertation on turmeric, the spice. And once I studied turmeric, that's it. I became an evangelist of what's possible for our health. So I do both now. I teach Ayurveda. I have a clinical practice. I'm a practitioner of it. I see clients. And then I have a whole supplement company that I built around turmeric. And then I'm writing books so I can change the world. So I have a Hay House book coming out January 2026.
Ooh, well, congratulations. I'm going to unpack all this because that was an amazing journey. A PhD in one plant that blew my mind. I was just like, wow, that's so cool. But I want to go back to Ayurveda. So I have been to India a couple of times and I was invited to Bengaluru to go teach Chinese medicine and acupuncture to 36 doctors that were really interested in learning how to use acupuncture on top of using Ayurveda. So
Amazing.
when I was there, as you know, in India, what I love about India, which I discovered when I was there because I had never been, is that everybody is trying to learn more, right? This is what guru is a teacher. If you're teaching Ayurveda, you're a guru of it. The guru word means teacher. And so everybody wants to learn, learn, learn. So when I was there, obviously I was teaching,
Yeah.
but now I was interested and I was really intrigued by Ayurvedic medicine. And I'm like, I know I'm teaching you guys, but during lunchtime, can you tell me more about Ayurveda? Like, how is this really relating to Chinese medicine? Do you see a correlation? Do you see differences? So one of the things that we have in Chinese medicine is we have 5 body type, 5 elements. You guys have a different number of elements, and you have the doshas, which are your body and your body type. So I would love for you to talk about the elements a little bit and then the doshas and how they relate to each other.
Absolutely. So I do know that in your five elements, you have wood and you have metal, and then fire, earth, and water, right? In Ayurveda, we have ether, air, fire, water, earth. And we take those five elements of ours, ether meaning space, the space all around us, the space in which we live, the universe in which we are held. Then air is like the wind, all the movement, every process in the body that's moving and outside our bodies in nature, but all movement. Fire, self explanatory, the heat and the fire. Water, more flow and all the water properties that exist. And then earth is that earth grounded energy. And so in Ayurveda, we take those five elements and we do divide them into something called the doshas. And so the first dosha is vata, and vata dosha is made of air and ether. So this is a person whose physical traits are that they're thin and wiry, they're taller or shorter than most people in their demographic. They'll have oval face, small eyes oftentimes. They're going to have smaller features, more small
Wow.
boned, thin bones, those kinds of things. Dry skin, brittle hair. Because imagine air movement, it's going to cause dryness. That's a property of what air would cause. And then mental, emotional. We talk about how they are 200 miles a minute. They're just go, busy body can never stop, like a ceiling fan. A ceiling fan just won't stop. And so that's the energy that they bring to the table. And they tend to be very creative because they're light and ethereal. They're up in those higher planes. And so they're able to bring down that art and that music for all of us. But also, they tend to not finish their projects because they're not very grounded. So they can tend to look like a flake. And so it's interesting when you meet a Vata person, I'm always like, oh, I know. I already know what you struggle with because I get it. And a Vata person will have a tendency not to eat real meals. This is someone who can just survive on tea all day and drinks and snacks and some celery. And they don't ever need real meals. By evening, they'll realize, wow, I didn't eat today. And so a Vata person, we need to support them with the dryness that leads to constipation, support them with the dryness that's causing their skin to be dry, their body to be dried out, support their anxiety and their anxious tendencies and help them stay more grounded. So really it's more about oleation, hydration, grounding. That's our goal with a Vata person, to create the balance they need. Then there's a person called Pitta. A Pitta body type is someone who's medium bodied, reddish tones, early graying in the hair. I'm a Pitta. And Pitta people tend to be right in the middle, not thin and wiry, not big boned like the Kapha, which we're going to get to. A Pitta person is fire with water. And so that fire comes through strong. They are driven, ambitious, goal getters. They have these big goals for the world. The problem with a Pitta is that fire can easily get out of whack and overburnt. And then you've got someone who's overwhelmed, frustrated, angry. They erupt like a volcano, they explode like a volcano. And so our job is to take a Vata person and really help them calibrate to exactly what's right for them, cool down the entire nuclear reactor that they are so they can be balanced and whole. So a Pitta will tend to be inflamed, will tend to be angry, can be anxious as well. It's just a lot of heat and fire, and they need to be cooled. And then they're balanced, and then they're actually very productive. And then you have Kapha. And a Kapha person is earth energy with water. So this is your person who's bigger boned, stronger constitution, can lift heavier. round features, oilier, curlier hair, oilier, supple skin. So they look younger over time. This is that Mother Earth energy. They're that caretaker, grandma energy who loves you and takes care of you and feeds you. They're very one thing at a time, one thought at a time, one step at a time. They're not going to be rushed. They're someone who, like Mother Earth, like when they're done with the work for the day, they just sit down and rest. They settle for the night. They aren't out there trying to be productive again for no good reason. And so a Guffa person, when they're in balance, they're the best friend you always wanted. When they're out of balance, they tend to be jealous. They want to be very protective and fierce around their people. Their metabolism can be slow. So our job with Guffa is really support that metabolism and energy. And they can have a tendency towards mucus and a lot of congestion in the system. And so we have to support them in drying that, eating easily cooked meals that are easier to digest for that digestive system that they have, and then support them to understand their nature and how to stay balanced within that. And so the Ayurvedic perspective is you are born at that moment of conception. Your dosha is decided. That is your prakriti and your original template coming in. In Ayurveda, we believe in astrology and the importance of those two parents coming together in that moment. So you are the combo of your two parents and the environment you were born in. And then over time, you can get really imbalanced. And we call that vakruti. So I could be a pitta, and then having kids and life events makes me a kapha, imbalanced human. And then my job is to come back to my original state, which is pitta. And so that's where a lot of what we're doing as Ayurvedic practitioners is just balancing you back to your original constitution.
Thank you. That was a great lesson. I love it. That's
Yeah.
awesome. It's interesting because I was going to ask you when you were explaining all the three doshas, could you be two of those combined?
Correct. You can be. You can have a primary dosha and a secondary dosha. Most of us do. That's what makes us so unique. We're some interesting combination. I'm a primary pitta, but if I don't watch it in this modern day world in my business, vata anxiety, vata overwhelm, vata too much thinking too fast is my imbalance point. Or if I'm not watching it, kapha and weight gain can easily happen for my body type, my variation. And so really it's about how do I stay in my zone. So you can have some people who are three doshic who are balanced in all three, which is interesting. Or you can have a primary and secondary, or you could be all of one, but I've never met someone who only has one dosha. We always have some combo of the three.
That is the same in Chinese medicine. We have five type, which comes from the five elements. And we can have a combo. We usually have a primary and secondary, which, by the way, in Chinese medicine, we could see that as you grow into yourself as an adult, sometimes they reverse. Like, let's say you have wood as a primary and earth as your secondary. As you become an adult, it could reverse where now earth is your primary. When I was a child, I was very earth, which means I was very sensitive. I'm an empath to start with, but I like structure, and the wood is very structure, very planning. But now as an adult, I'm still sensitive, but I'm much more of a planner, a goal-oriented kind of person. So that's my dominant now. So it kind of reversed. And I have met patients that have all five elements, which I found them much more balanced. Because you're right, we all have a little bit of, it's the same in Chinese medicine, each element within us. And when they're all very well balanced, it's kind of cool to see because that person's vitality or chi, which I assume for you guys is prana, is powerful. You meet them and you're like, this person has an essence that comes out that you're just like, give me what you're doing. So tell me a little bit about how you see prana, which for us is chi, and how does that play a role?
So we do call prana the life force, and our goal is to really build up that life force and have it balanced and supporting us throughout life. And another similar concept to prana that we have is called ojas. And so when we talk about vitality, I think of ojas, which is the byproduct of great digestion. And that means digesting everything, not just food, digesting the life around you, digesting the environment around you, creating an environment that allows you to be well digested of what's around you, and then producing something called ojas, which is almost like this nectar, this energy and vitality. So anytime someone gets like a surgery or something big or traumatic happens, you kind of get wiped out and you end up being weak and tired, and building back ojas is your job. And so we teach about eating foods that are so nourishing, taking time and space to heal and things like that. And so I love teaching that word ojas because to me, I can tell when I'm feeling phenomenal and energized and whole. And when I don't, when I feel that little fluctuation in the system, I can think back, okay, what am I doing that's causing that? And how do I come back to that like very energized, centered self? That's what I love about Ayurveda is the whole goal is to bring body, mind, and spirit into alignment, just like in Chinese medicine. These are two ancient, beautiful systems that are very parallel in their beliefs and their understandings. I truly believe they were started at that exact same time, right alongside each other. Maybe not exact, but very similar timings, and had that ancient wisdom pulling through that was so much about the prevention of what we're dealing with now in our health and almost teaching an opposite lifestyle to what we're taught in modern day times. And so it's kind of counterintuitive sometimes to live the Ayurveda lifestyle. Even in the evenings, I'll say, okay, I have more work to do. And they'll say, no, you don't. That's not what the evenings are for. The evenings are actually for relaxing. And the minute I delete that thought, which is a foreign body thought that is not productive, I will tune into, yeah, actually, let's settle for the evening. Let's connect with our children. Let's just chill. And then I have a more beautiful evening. It's just interesting that the two systems are so similar. But yes, we call prana that life force energy. And if you lack it, you're going to lack the life force.
I love it. It's interesting because it's exactly the same for Chinese medicine. The similarities for me that I really love is we look for the root cause of the problem, not just the Band-Aid symptoms, which you had to deal with so many antibiotics. There's just like doing the Band-Aid. They're not looking why you're sick, what's going on with poor you, right? So that's the first thing we do is we look for the root cause and see what can we do about that. And the second thing we do, it's all about balance and being within our own rhythm, the nature, the season, and our own circadian rhythm, which you're right, in our North American lifestyle, it's very forgotten. You know, you work till 2 o'clock in the morning and you get up at 6 and you run all day like a maniac, getting the kids there, doing this, do that. Then you get home and then you start again. And then suddenly one day you can't get out of bed, you have chronic fatigue syndrome, and you're like, what happened? And it's like, well, your body could do it for a long time. Eventually, it lost that fire you were talking about, which you said so beautifully. So in Chinese medicine, it's called the gate of vitality. So the Mingmen fire, it's like a fire, same thing. And you lost your fire. Your fire was depleted completely. In Western science, you can say your cortisol level were completely out of whack, and you basically, your adrenals, they can't stand the fight or flight that you live on a constant basis with the anxiety, etc. Looking back at ancient medicine, what I love is that we can use ancient penicillin in the modern world, and we actually need it more now than they probably did 2,000-3,000 years ago.
Very true. You're right. And we probably need it 100 times more, 1,000,000 times more than they did.
Because we're so unbalanced most of the time.
Diagnosis has to be the hardest part of Chinese medicine. We always say there is no wrong treatment in TCM, only the wrong diagnosis. This is why I created my second book, Chinese Medicine Made Easy, to make it easy to grasp using a lot of colorful visuals. I have included all Chinese medicine foundation, yin yang theory, 5 elements, zong fu organ, all of it. All diagnosis, of course, including tongue and pulse, practice case studies to help you improve your skills, as well as give you access to my online fillable intake form to use with your own patients. You can download the digital version on any device, and it comes with many video links to complement it. Or if, like me, you like to read a real book, the hard copy ships all over the world. Before you invest in this book, you can download a sample of it to make sure that the format of the book is everything you were looking for, because I want to make sure that you are absolutely benefiting from it. Listen to what people have to say about my green book, Chinese Medicine Made Easy. The more I read, the more I like this book. It is simple to follow. All information is super organized with great pictures, makes memorizing a lot easier. This book will definitely make my learning a lot more productive. Yay! So happy to hear that. You've done it again. You are amazing. I wish we had your resources 20 years ago back in TCM school. This also makes my day, because this is why I do what I've been doing with AcuPro Academy for quite a few years now to support everyone. Check out the links in the show notes below, or go to my website, acuproacademy.com, and click the shop tab on the menu bar and get your copy today.
I love to learn. My 2 trips to India were cathartic for me, very enlightening. I learned a lot because not only I was teaching and I was learning, but the people that hosted me took me everywhere to temples. I learned about, the different gods. We had great conversation about what do you do when someone dies? What happened when someone dies? It was just one of those fabulous encounters that I was invited and I'm like, sure, I'll come, but no expectation. I'm just here to teach Chinese medicine. Great. But it was just fabulous. I came back. My husband's like, you look like a different person. What happened in India?
Nice. That's always the goal. You go to an Ayurvedic center and it's like the ultimate oil change in modern day, but it's like that perfect reboot and reset and recharge to the whole system so that we can come back healthy and balanced and whole and vitality is back online again?
I know. And it's great that you went back to your roots. I think that's really good because I'm in Canada and just like the United States, those countries are very new. And so everyone immigrate from somewhere at one point. And so I see a lot of patients that are from all over the world and their parents were probably the generation that immigrated or their grandparents were the one. So one or two generations passed and it feels like the new generation doesn't speak the language, doesn't know the culture, like it's all lost, which is too bad because I feel like you could still integrate and be part of the whole world, but still understand where you came from because your body probably needs that, the roots of who you are, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In my household, we're cooking proper, fresh, vegetarian Indian food 4 days a week. We live by the Ayurvedic principles. My kids don't love it, but I do it anyway. We don't eat food past 1 day old. I do not serve water or any beverages with our meals. All of our food is pan heated. I'm trying to source it as local and fresh as I can. We're definitely using all the spices and super spices, as I call them. I go to India and then I started taking my kids to India. Now they're old enough to absorb it and understand it. And so my dream is to take them every other year, just like I was taken every other year. Because when I go to India, it feels like home. I have the same driver that I had growing up, the same house, my family's there. Now I get to meet with factories and suppliers and see the science behind the botanicals, which is like a cool new element. But I get to take them to all those family places where I grew up. I think it's so important, like you said, to bring in that culture. And I'm trying to bring India into the West in a bite-sized way. But I love that so much of the world does get to go to India and experience the magic there. It's a completely different world than what we would ever see anywhere else, which is cool.
It's completely different world. I had so much laughter there. They took me places, like I said, and so we drove all over. I didn't drive, obviously, but we drove all over. And I remember the first time we're driving everywhere because it's so different than Europe or North America, how people drive in India and in a big city, of course. I remember thinking, this is fantastic. They all laugh because I called driving in India organized chaos because it's chaotic because everybody's honking and you're like, at first you're just going, what is happening? But then you realize everybody knows what the rules are and there's no accident because it's organized chaos. It may be looking like chaos, but it's very well organized and everybody knows how to do it. And I was just fascinated by that. So I had such a great trip the first time and then I went back the second time. Before we start talking about botanics, there's one thing you just said that I would love for you to expand on because I grew up in a household in France where we never, ever drank water with our meals. And then I moved to Canada and everywhere you go, not only they give you water, but they give you ice water with lots of ice cube. And I'm in a country where it's cold in winter, but it doesn't matter. You go to a restaurant, they give you that big glass of ice with lots of ice and water. And you're like, what? This. So explain to me, what is the view Ayurvedic medicine shows you why you should not drink water, specifically cold water, right while you're having a meal?
So just like in Chinese medicine, you teach about fire. In Ayurveda, we call that fire Agni, or the gut digestive fire. And honoring that gut digestive fire is your job. It's pretty much the central job of your life because that fire, Ayurveda taught us, is your immune system. It's your mood. It's your brain capacity. It's your energy. And if you don't manage that fire well, you're going to put it out and then you have to rebuild from scratch. And so just like you would build a campfire with a lot of intention, with small and medium and large branches, you would get it lit, you would tend to that fire, kindle it to become strong and well. That's how you manage your meals throughout the day so that that fire supports you. So when I ignite my fire in the morning and I have my breakfast, I want it processed. I want to digest and assimilate all those nutrients. Then I'm going to let that fire rest. I'm not going to snack and eat constantly. Get to lunch. I'm not going to pour ice water on my fire. That would be putting it out completely. I would instead, if I'm thirsty because I'm dehydrated, I could ask for hot water with lemon, hot water, and I carry my own ginger tea bag possibly. And you can sip hot water before a meal. That's why in a lot of cultures we have a soup before the meal, because a hot beverage is actually going to be supportive of the fire, but not too much liquid. We don't want to dilute our stomach acids and our stomach enzymes and digestive enzymes that we have for our food. Then going forward, dinner, same thing. You want that fire. And then that's it. We need to close down the fire, not have a million evening snacks and late night foods that completely undo our circadian rhythm so that our body can heal and repair and clear inflammation overnight. And so Ayurveda taught us all of that. They use rudimentary terms like Agni, fire, but it's the same concept that we're learning now, which is we really have to focus on how we're approaching our health. So every time I get to a restaurant, I look at them and I go, no ice, please. And they're like, no ice. I'm like, "Yeah, no ice for anybody." They might want to drink their cool water. Can I have hot water with lemon, please? And that's just a simple, easy, free way that we can support our digestion everywhere we go without completely extinguishing that fire within us.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that, because I'm 100% on that. Literally, that's how I've always done it since I was little, and it's just part of who I am. But, I wasn't raised with Chinese medicine or Ayurveda or anything. It was just part of our household, and this is how I grew up. So I'm not used to drink water, because I feel if I drank water, it would really dilute all that food, and I really enjoy eating the food. It was just automatic. So thank you for explaining this. So you talked about ginger tea. I was blown away that you did a whole entire PhD in turmeric, like in one little plant. So I have my ginger turmeric tea in honor of you today, because I love ginger turmeric in winter, specifically in Canada in winter. So tell me how this happened, and how do you do a PhD in turmeric, and why?
Well, I was sitting in herbology class, and the teacher talked about how turmeric is anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, antioxidant, anti-obesity, helps with insulin sensitivity. Those were some pretty big keywords because I come from a very diabetic family. Diabetes is rampant in all sides of my family. I learned that antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal piece, and I thought, oh, I who had no immune system growing up, you're telling me turmeric helps with that? Wow, okay. Supports gut lining, gut membrane, supports with digestive fire, supports with anti-parasitic, anti-H. pylori. It's very anti-aging. And so a lot of those different keywords hit me, and I thought, okay, you're telling me that one spice can do all that? There's no way. It's a lot of claims to make on one spice. And my teacher said, no, I'm telling you the truth. You can go research it. So I started looking up turmeric, and I thought, oh, okay, there's actually a lot of interest in this. And what's interesting is I had worked in a lab in high school where a scientist in Houston at MD Anderson Cancer Center was studying curcumin's impact on different chronic metabolic diseases. And he discovered that black pepper increases the absorption of curcumin by 2,000%. So I was in that lab decades previous, hadn't connected all those dots. As I was sitting there, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm curious. Could we use this for people like me who can't take NSAIDs and can't take medications all the time? They really affect me really badly. And I'm on a journey to avoid taking those ever again in my life. I told my advisor, he actually encouraged me to do a PhD. I was against it. And he said, if you picked a topic, what would it be? And I chose turmeric. And there's a lot on turmeric. Like, I want to take my PhD, expand it now, because it's old. It's 5 years old. And there's so much science now. Back when I did the PhD, I think it was about 10,000 published science papers in PubMed that were clinical trials and articles and research papers. And now it's at about 17,000. So it's exponential growth in the science of turmeric and curcumin worldwide. And so what most people don't know about turmeric is all the benefits I named, but also I've been presenting at a lot of medical conferences on the applications of curcumin for chronic joint pain, curcumin into orthopedics, neurology, rheumatology, all these subspecialties. When I had my kids, I had all sorts of health issues, plantar fasciitis, knee pain. And when I'd go to the orthopedic doctor, their office would say, just take NSAIDs 24/7 for 10 days and your pain will go away. And back then, pre-studying Ayurveda in depth, I was pretty unevolved in my thinking, and I just was in so much pain. I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. And I did it. And then afterwards, I had stomach pain. And I said, hey, guys, the one thing I don't tolerate anymore in my life is stomach pain and digestive issues. I do a lot to heal my gut. What happened? And they're like, oh, yeah, NSAIDs can cause some digestive issues. And I thought, You gave me a solution for my pain and you harmed my gut? Really? That's okay with you guys? That's unacceptable. And so when I was studying curcumin, I was always curious, could we create a curcumin in the world that doctors would trust and lean on? So when someone had pain, they would reach to that tool instead of the tool they're giving me now, because the tool they're giving me now doesn't work for me. And so that's what I set about and created. After my PhD was done, I was like, okay, how can I take this science, move it into the United States, produce it in the US, third party tested in a way doctors will trust? And so in the first year when I went about to do it, I'm very perfectionist. So I hired this factory and they said, listen, you can't use ingredients like these. They're too expensive. And I said, you know what? I just want to prove my point. I just want to see, is it possible? Because this is a hypothesis. I don't know if it's true. I believe it to be true, but I don't know. So I formulated it. We built that first product and all the orthopedic surgeons were shocked. And I thought, okay, so then I have proven my point. And my factory said, well, you'll never make money. Like, this is a horrible way to build a business. You can't do product first. You have to do margin first. And so it's taken me almost 10 years. I'm 10 years into it. And now finally keeping the exact same ingredient and improving quality over time. Actually, I've moved into an even better factory. I've been able to prove into so many systems of medicine that it works. So we know through the British Medical Journal now that curcumin is as effective as PPIs. We know in orthopedics, it helps with chronic joint pain. Rheumatology is loving it right now. Functional medicine really loves it because they get it. I work with Chinese medicine doctors and different types of people. And so I just love teaching that turmeric can be powerful. I provide one great solution. There's other great turmeric supplements out there. But my obsession is showing everyone that regular turmeric powder has benefits, but it isn't usually going to give you those significant health benefits that curcumin will give you. Because out of the entire turmeric plant, only 3% is those curcuminoids. Those are the most effective at reducing inflammation. And so getting those in the right proportion at the right potency is the key to getting those results that we want from turmeric. For those of us who are inflamed, which seems like most of us are nowadays.
So when it comes to the turmeric, I know your line of your turmeric supplement, you followed what you found out, which you put black pepper in there for better absorption, because that is something that obviously science went and looked at, which is how can we better absorb? Because we can take a lot of things, but if we don't absorb it, and the black pepper is what allows us to absorb it. So you did put that in your formula, which I love. Where do you source your turmeric from?
Mine is coming out of South India. So I know my factory owner. I was there meeting with him last year and I got to see the farms. I got to meet the people. He is as obsessed with quality as I am. And so it's so nice when you meet someone who's just, he is constantly in the world of how do we create more absorption? How do we create even better results? But holding on to the principle of we must mimic Mother Nature. You defy Mother Nature, you will not create a result in the body. The body has to absorb it in the end. And so we're not about pushing extraction levels to prove a point or a result. We're really landing above 95% standardization naturally while keeping that proportion. So mine's out of South India. I use black pepper. If you're going to use regular turmeric powder or use the tea or any of these things, make sure you have black pepper in there or a healthy fat. What's cool is in Indian cooking, we have garam masala in our spice box. We have a masala box that we use for our cooking every day, and that had the black pepper built into it. So this ancient wisdom has been part of our lives and foods for eons. And that's why years ago, there was such an interest in turmeric because they found that Asian people in their Asian curries are getting less Alzheimer's, less dementia. And they thought, oh, what is this spice? Now we're seeing so much advancement in effect of curcumin on amyloid plaques, on tau tangles, on sirtuins, on telomeres, on age glycation and these different processes, ages. So it's a really cool moment for turmeric.
That's really exciting to see that we can turn towards plant and botanics instead of a lot of medication, which, has, as you know, a lot of side effects. So to go back into what the earth gave us is fantastic, because we know in Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine, that, the center of our health is in our gut. Like, this is where everything is going to, affect our brain. It affects our immune system, everything. So our central nervous system. So it's really important to have a good gut. And you mentioned that turmeric is great for gut health as well, which is fantastic. In Chinese medicine, we use it a lot for pain because it's supposed to move blood circulation, for arthritic or pain. It's good for dysmenorrhea, those kind of things. So that's how Chinese medicine looks at it from that perspective. When you mentioned the turmeric and the curcumin, and then the black pepper, and then you said we have masala. I love masala chai. Oh my gosh, that was the best thing. I could have drank that all day. That was my problem. Literally, they had to stop me like, all right, you got to stop drinking 7 cups a day. The first 2 days, I drank 7 cups. I couldn't stop.
Yeah, you have to moderate everything in India. Like, oh my God, the food that's tastier. Your carrots have a taste to them. Unlike in the West, I can't find a vegetable or fruit that has a taste to it. So I love it in India.
You got to take advantage, right? I'm just there for a short period of time. So that was quite funny, actually. They laugh at me and I'm like, you got to stop it. But it reminded me of when I was there, they talked about golden milk, which has black pepper, which have turmeric and ginger and cinnamon, I believe. Can you tell me a little bit about golden milk and how that plays a role in Ayurveda?
In Ayurveda, we have so many different teas and elixirs and concoctions and ways that we deliver a natural remedy. Sometimes we just mix something in honey. Sometimes we brew a tea around it. Sometimes we just hide it in your food. That's what I do to my family. I just hide it inside the food because a lentil will have enough spices that you can drop a lot of things in terms of supplements right under that lentil for them. But in India, we used to drink something called haldi doodh, and people still do it now. It's whole milk, cow's milk with turmeric, the spice, and that whole milk from the cow's milk was enough. And then you can add in other spices like nutmeg and different things that you're talking about. Cardamom, for example, is beneficial for sleep. And that's a beautiful ritual to bring into your life. I know anyone who's elder to me, like my father-in-law, the generation just above me, used it regularly. The thing is, a lot of people call it now a turmeric latte. And then they take that turmeric latte and they make it a skinny latte. And you're just completely bastardizing and ruining this thing whose intention was to reduce your inflammation overnight and to be a whole soothing drink that was beneficial, right? Those fats are beneficial for you. Now we're half scared of cow's milk, half not. It's a very confusing time in the food world. But my point to everyone is that worked for that time period. I do not take any turmeric in my food and assume it's enough to deal with the level of inflammation and toxic burden that we're dealing with in modern day times, especially in North America. I don't trust our water. I don't trust the air. I don't trust the food. I don't trust the level of pesticides. So I have to be full court press focused on inflammation reduction. And Ayurveda teaches us to do that on all levels. So I don't consume horror movies. I don't consume the news because I don't need negativity in my system that I have to digest and process. I have air filters in my home. I have water filters. So I try to carry my water in glass all day so that it's healthy and good. And I know how much this is cleaned up and then what I'm putting into it and how I'm infusing it. So I think of turmeric milk as a beautiful ritual, but I would open a turmeric capsule into it that gave me the 500 milligrams of curcumin and then assume that that's my superfood healing drink that's going to drive a result for me. And that's just based on all the science and everything I read and what I see. If you see clients nowadays, everyone's coming in with huge autoimmune stack ups, all these big issues that are tough. That's a sign. We're inflamed by the level of burden coming at us, and we have to work harder to push that away.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I love that you mentioned, when you have to live in an environment that is going to feed your body, but also your mind and spirit, and watching the news and being negative and just watching, gory, bloody kind of show constantly, that doesn't feed your spirit. So you could feed your body really good food, but if you're doing this on the other side, then you're not balancing it. So I love that you mentioned that because I'm a big proponent of that. And that's why I don't watch the news. I always say to my husband, when something really big happened, you could tell me because he watches the news, but I don't have to. Because I'm an empath, if I watch the news, I'm going to start crying and I will never forget that story for the rest of my life. And it's in me. And that's not good.
Me too. I'm the same. I'm so impressionable. I could see a clip on Facebook go by and I am dreaming about that woman losing her child for months, like years, actually. I don't let go of it ever. And it's part of my ethos. And so imagine how many things we've already absorbed in life that are causing inflammation and problems in the system, right? And all our lymphatic systems are kind of backed up too. So that perfect issue of lymphatic and inflammation is what I'm trying to show people is that key. And then getting that digestive fire going is a piece of winning at this whole puzzle.
Thank you so much for, first of all, for coming, for really sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, your Ayurvedic passion, because I can see that that's come out so beautifully. And I know you have a couple of gifts for my audience, which I thought was so sweet. First of all, you have a cookbook that's Ayurvedic cookbook. It's digital, of course, but we're going to have the link below because you're giving this to my audience. So thank you so much, because then that gives them an idea of what they could do, what kind of recipes they could incorporate. I also like the fact that you said if you're doing a turmeric latte, you would have to kind of take the concentrate turmeric, like opening a capsule, and because the concentrate is what's going to help people, not if it's just, syrup or something that I don't know what they put in there. So I have no idea, but it's not going to be the good stuff. Another thing that you mentioned when we started is you said you would love to give a discount to anybody that would like to try your formulas that are around turmeric. And so I appreciate that. I thought that was really sweet of you. So we'll have the link with the discount, which is AcuPro. That's who we are, the AcuPro Show. For if anybody wants to try Dr. Gupta line, that I really like the way you did this again, because you do have a PhD in turmeric. So I know how this whole spice and herb and botanic and plant, whatever we want to call it, is effective in so many ways in the body. So I really appreciate you being here. Any final thoughts before I let you go? Because I'm sure your time is valued.
Of course, this is so nice to come on here and share with your group and your community. I love working with practitioners like yours who are so like-minded. We're speaking the same language. We all love ashwagandha and ginger and the adaptogens. Chinese medicine has the most incredible adaptogens. And I'm the biggest acupuncture fan. I did acupuncture in fertility and pregnancy. So I'm a big proponent of using both. Both systems have such tremendous value and bring so much balance to the system. I do work with lots of acupuncturists who recommend my formulas to their patients. So I'm happy to work with anyone in that way as well. And I've developed a lot of teas because supplements are one thing, that's a delivering a result system. But Ayurveda is very much about the honoring of the plants and the synergistic effects. So I've created a adaptogenic tea around menopause, one around sleep, one around anxiety and unwinding. And so I just invite you guys to look at those as well, because I always wanted to own a tea company where I made teas that I loved. And so we have those based on matcha and jasmine green tea and all those beautiful benefits as well. So those might be something your audience loves if they're tea lovers like I am.
Oh my gosh, we're going to have the links in the show notes because I'm a tea lover. I don't drink coffee. And when you said jasmine green tea, literally I have this every morning.
Me too.
Buddy, you're like my Ayurvedic TCM sister. My husband knows he makes coffee for himself. And then I make the jasmine tea. And then we go outside and we have our tea, coffee kind of thing. And we have our first conversation of the day with some beautiful real light. And then we start the day. And that's how we start every single day. So it's so funny. You said jasmine green tea. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm coming over.
That's my obsession is jasmine green teas. I had to make one that I loved. And then it helps with perimenopause, menopause, which is great because I'm in the 44, 45 range. So I got to take those things now.
Fair. And there is a massive population out there with women that is going through this. I'm way past, I'm towards my 60 now, late 50s. So I'm done. Really, thank you so much, Dr. Shivani, for coming today. It was a pleasure meeting you. I can talk about Ayurvedic medicine and the similarity and differences with Chinese medicine for hours. So thank you so, so much. We'll have all the links in the show notes to all the places where people can find you, including on social media. And I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I truly hope you benefited from this episode, and I would love for you to share it with a friend that may benefit from it as well. Follow the show, leave a review, and if you want more, go to my website, acuproacademy.com. I have tons of resources there with treatment protocols, case studies, free courses, and so much more. And connect with me on all social media at AcuPro Academy. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, Pinterest, and LinkedIn and TikTok. And no matter what, keep rocking it using TCM. Please listen to the disclaimer, because the AcuPro Show podcast and material shared through AcuPro Academy, which is a subdivision of Natural Health Sense Incorporated, are designed solely for educational and entertainment purposes. The utilization of information from this podcast or any associated material is at the user's discretion and risk. This content is not meant to replace the guidance of an acupuncturist, Chinese medicine doctor, medical doctor, physician, or any qualified professional, nor is it a substitute for proper diagnosis or treatment. Users are strongly advised not to ignore or postpone seeking medical advice for any existing medical condition with their healthcare professional regarding any health concerns.